ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So Srila Prabhupada, he was working on the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Second canto was almost done. He started working on third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. But then one thing Srila Prabhupada was always feeling in his heart was, this was again in the year 1969. We're talking about the beginning of 1969. Prabhupada was always feeling one thing, that I'm not sure how long I'll be living on this planet. And Prabhupada had this thing in the heart that come what may, I should give the world the nectar of Krishna Lila. Without that, I cannot live. This was the mode of Prabhupada. So Prabhupada at that time, he suspended his work on third canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, and he started writing the summary study of 10th canto, which he called it as Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we call it as Krishna book. He started working on that. Now it is described how Srila Prabhupada was doing this. So Srila Prabhupada, he would speak the Krishna book in the dictaphone. He would dictate. And then he would instruct various different artists. Because now the entire goal was, in that Krishna book, many paintings should be there which would portray various pastimes of the Lord. And therefore you see a lot of paintings in Krishna book. Prabhupada was very, very particular about this. And he wanted the color paintings. Till now, no book had color paintings, it seems. So now the color paintings would come. And again, for your information, 1966, the movement has begun. We're talking about 1969. And many people who joined our movement at that time were foreigners. They were hardly knowing anything about Krishna. Through this, whatever Prabhupada was dictating, this was something which devotees wanted. And they would hear this. And this was their nourishment, where they were getting to know more and more about Krishna. Now I'm wondering, when Prabhupada would ask those artists to draw some painting, how he was instructing them. Kuch nahi pata unko to. Even how Krishna looks, that also they might not be knowing. So imagine how many details Prabhupada might have given. Therefore, one thing that you see is, there is a huge difference between the BBT paintings and the ordinary paintings of this world. You can see that difference. Naturally, the BBT paintings are very, very attractive. Because that person who keeps seeing Krishna all the time is instructing how Krishna looks. That person is meditating on these pastimes live. He is talking about how that scene was. And that's how the entire thing is painted. We are so fortunate to have these paintings. So fortunate. So Srila Prabhupada was instructing, and all the devotees, when they would hear those pastimes which Prabhupada has dictated, they would be spellbound. They would be so happy. They would be so happy. Some background to understand Krishna books, how publication took place, how distribution took place. See, at that time, BTG, Back to Godhead magazine, this was something which was the life and soul of devotees to read and to distribute. So in every temple, BTG was there, and devotees were going out early in the morning to distribute BTG. And along with that, there was one small book which they would distribute. Which one is that? Easy Journey to Other Planets. Because Srila Prabhupada, in India only, he wrote that book, if I'm not wrong. So these were the small books, which they had. Can you imagine? The entire movement at that time was running on distribution of books.
But books only were not there. They had BTG and they had the small book. And devotees were used to doing this. And Srila Prabhupada, he had this out of the world ideas. So once Srila Prabhupada called for a meeting and he decided to ask devotees to sell 20,000 BTGs every month or so. So he gave the order. Now the orders were given in Japan to a company called Dai Nippon. He gave this order, 20,000. And when those books were ready, when those magazines were ready, they were distributed in various places, especially in San Francisco, New York, and other places. Now devotees were struggling to distribute those books. It was not practical for them. And Prabhupada had told all the center heads there that for 20,000 BTGs, we need so and so money. So all of you have to send. So monthly you have to send. That was very heavy for them. It was not practical for them. So now on credit, BTG magazines were taken. And already so much of credit was there. So now for the next book, that is Krishna book, they were not ready to print it on credit. They were asking for money. Now this was the scene. So in July 15, 1969, Prabhupada writes a letter to Shyamasundar Prabhu. He says that I have prepared this nice book called Krishna and I want to print a deluxe edition of this. It's very nice to see Prabhupada's aspiration to serve Krishna. कुछ छोटा नहीं सोचेंगे, सब बड़ा. Yes. नंबर भी तो 20,000. अभी प्रिंट करना तो deluxe edition. पैसा नहीं है बिल्कुल. You want to print deluxe edition. He's writing this. And then Prabhupada is saying, if any of your friends can sponsor, then we can surely get this done. And how much money is needed? $19,000 only. See, we are talking about 1969. $19,000 is huge. $19,000 only. So Shyamasundar Prabhu, he writes back to Srila Prabhupada and he talks about an upcoming temple in a place called Yuri. And Shyamasundar Prabhu was working on this. He was working very hard. Shyamasundar Prabhu, secretary of Srila Prabhupada's, personal servant of Srila Prabhupada, he was doing all big things. Big Rath Yatra, big festivals, big Pandal programs, and now big temple. He was working on that. Single-handedly was doing that. Shyamasundar Prabhu, along with his wife and other two couples, they were sent to which place? So this place was there in London. And they had developed a very nice friendship with whom? George Harrison. Now George Harrison and Shyamasundar Prabhu and devotees, they had a very nice relationship. And the basis of that relationship was Shyamasundar Prabhu and other devotees, they would never ask anything from George Harrison. So George would feel very nice. And he himself would give something. So they would never ask anything. So this was the relationship. And Shyamasundar Prabhu and the team of devotees had decided will never ask anything to George. Because so many people every day would come to ask money from him. Some donation, some this and some that. So they had decided we'll never ask. If we ask, our relationship will get spoiled. But now, in this letter, somehow Shyamasundar Prabhu had mentioned, I'll check with George Harrison if he can do that. And Srila Prabhupada, he writes a letter. Now July 31, because July 15th was that letter where Prabhupada is updating that I have written this book, I want to publish it. And there was a reply that was given back by Shyamasundar Prabhu. Now the letter comes, July 31, 1969. He says, I'm very pleased to note that you have made such nice recording of Hare Krishna, which may be released by the Beatles company. Also, it is very encouraging to learn that you think Mr. George Harrison will be happy to print our Krishna book. This will be a very great service to the mankind at large. So remember the date. Dates are important here for the discussion. Now, since Shyamasundar Prabhu was busy in the temple construction and all that, so he forgot about Krishna book. August 31, another letter comes. 1 month now. And Prabhupada writes, in your last letter, you informed me that George Harrison may be interested to publish my book. So I'm carrying the manuscript with me. I want to print this book with many pictures. Pictures are also ready in Los Angeles and Boston. So if possible, you can further talk with him about this publication. And if he does so, it will be very nice for him as well as for us. Now see, throughout this entire thing, our Shyam Sundar Prabhu was hesitant. Because they decided something, no? What they decided? They'll not ask anything to George Harris from him. He was very much hesitant. And therefore, he was ignoring this. But now Prabhupada came. Prabhupada came to London. Prabhupada came to UK. For almost 1.5 months, Prabhupada didn't speak anything about Krishna book. George Harrison at that time, he had sponsored $3,000 worth marble for the temple altar. So one day, Srila Prabhupada, he called Shyam Sundar Prabhu. The Prabhupada was there in one room, and Shyam Sundar Prabhu was working very hard because they had decided some date for temple inauguration, and Prabhupada preponed that date. And Prabhupada said, I want to inaugurate on this date. And it is described that without taking much consent of the devotees there, Prabhupada printed invitation letters and he started giving around. So they were working very hard. And in between that, Srila Prabhupada, he called Shyam Sundar Prabhu. Shyam Sundar Prabhu was very busy. He paused his work. He was personally working. All these devotees are so great. They're personally working. They're taking marble, they're doing something, carving this and that. They're personally working, putting the canopy. So he paused and then he came to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada says, we have got a quote from Dai Nippon. $19,000 only. I want you to ask George to print this Krishna book for me. So before telling this, Prabhupada was showing various pictures to Shyam Sundar Prabhu. So Prabhupada is saying, see, this is how Vasudev, he carried Krishna from jail to Vrindavan. And Shyam Sundar Prabhu is smiling and internally is thinking, Prabhupada, there's so much to do downstairs. And Prabhupada is going on and on. This is how he killed Keshi, this is how he killed Putana. He's showing all those pictures. And Shyam Sundar Prabhu is thinking, what is going on? There's so much of work that is remaining, and why Swamiji is doing this? And after some time, even Shyam Sundar Prabhu was engrossed in seeing the pictures. Because they were not knowing all these pastimes. And Prabhupada is personally explaining. Can you imagine? That Prabhupada is explaining you the photos that those are drawn, and Prabhupada is explaining why that particular pastime happened, how it happened, etc. Shyam Sundar Prabhu is hearing all that. And after that, Srila Prabhupada made it very clear. This is what is the quote. I want this book to be printed. You have to ask George. At that time, Shyam Sundar Prabhu, with some confidence, he spoke to Prabhupada. Prabhupada, we have good relations with George. And the basis of that relationship is, we don't ask him for anything. Because every day, so many people come to ask many things from him. But since we don't ask anything from him, our relationships are good. I'm worried if I ask him for this, what you are asking me, our relationship might be spoiled. And Prabhupada looked at Shyam Sundar Prabhu and he laughed. And he said, okay, don't worry. You put all the blame on me. You just tell that my spiritual master has told that he wants this book to be printed. Can you please help? I'll take all the blame. You just ask him. You will just ask him. And Prabhupada made one important statement. Krishna will help you, you see. And another very important thing that he told was, he gave some paintings to Shyam Sundar Prabhu and he said, just show these to Mr. Harrison. Everything else will take place. Now it was the same day when George Harrison, his friend David and Shyam Sundar Prabhu, they were supposed to go around to get some things for the temple. And they slogged the entire day, going here and there to get some marble, see some quality of things, paraphernalias, etc. And in the evening, they all came to a farmhouse of David, George Harrison's friend. So David and his wife, Gillian, so they had made a huge feast, and all of them they sat. And now in this entire thing, Shyam Sundar Prabhu forgot he's supposed to do something. Yes, something very important. Anyways, that was second priority, but now that had to be the first priority because Srila Prabhupada told very clearly, you have to ask George. So now they had feast, huge feast it was. It was very nice. Outside it started raining very heavily. And suddenly Shyam Sundar Prabhu remembered that he's supposed to ask something. Then he gave the paintings. Then he said, George, Prabhupada wanted me to ask you something. He's been working for a year or so on this big book called Krishna. You have seen all those nice paintings by devotees in our other books? Well, this book has dozens of paintings like these. And it's all about Krishna. His birth, his childhood, all demons that he killed, all that. Anyway, he wanted me to ask you if you would print it for him. Now, Shyam Sundar Prabhu is observing George Harrison's expressions. So they were having a very nice time, fun time. He was very jolly, he was very happy. And when Shyam Sundar Prabhu spoke, so George Harrison's expression started changing. Jolly, neutral, sad, angry. And at the same time, there was a huge lightning that struck the place and the power went off. It was pitch dark. Shyam Sundar Prabhu is experiencing all this, standing there. It's pitch dark, complete silence. And Shyam Sundar Prabhu says that we were just able to hear the breathing sound of people around. That's it. And Shyam Sundar Prabhu said that almost after a few seconds, after that total darkness and total silence, again the power came back and people were very happy. And at that time, Shyam Sundar Prabhu was knowing that something wrong is going to happen today. George is already angry. But he looked at George and it is described that he was smiling. He had a huge smile on his face. And looking at Shyam Sundar Prabhu, he asked, well, how much is it then? How much it will cost? And at that time, Shyam Sundar Prabhu felt very happy. They all were laughing. And Shyam Sundar Prabhu's laughter was, this is Krishna's magic. And then Shyam Sundar Prabhu said, well, it's just $19,000. So George said, okay, so anyways, I'm coming to your place. I'll be passing by your place, so I'll talk to Swamiji. Now Shyam Sundar Prabhu, he ran to Prabhupada to describe all this. He went to Prabhupada and he said, Prabhupada, so and so thing happened, lightning strike and power went off, it came back, George smiled. And Prabhupada was looking at Shyam Sundar Prabhu and he smiled. I told you, Krishna will help. And Shyam Sundar Prabhu said, looking at Srila Prabhupada, I felt as if he already knew what is going to happen next. So in this way, Srila Prabhupada, he got the sponsorship now. $19,000. Some more details are there. But finally they got it. And now Srila Prabhupada's mood was the best quality book has to come out. Best quality. And they gave the order to the same company, Dai Nippon, in Japan. So to assure the quality of the book, Srila Prabhupada sent Brahmananda Prabhu. Go to Japan and oversee the printing. Brahmananda Prabhu stayed there for 3 months. Every day he would go, check what they're doing. He would instruct on the quality. He would check various different things. Because that book was very, very special for Prabhupada. Very special. Every single day he would go and check. And the entire thing was that in next few days, 3 months was there, and after next few days, there's Rath Yatra. And this book, Brahmananda Prabhu wants to present in the Rath Yatra to Srila Prabhupada. And every day he would tell these Dai Nippon executives that we want this book by this time. And they would say, impossible, impossible. And Brahmananda Prabhu is trying to convince them, no, it is possible, try to do it. Every day this would take place. He would go and convince them and they would say, it's impossible, it's impossible. So finally Brahmananda Prabhu booked his tickets because Rath Yatra was there. Same day of Rath Yatra, he's supposed to reach there. So he booked his tickets. Again, he went and he told the Dai Nippon executive, so and so date, I booked the tickets, I have to leave, I want the book. At least some copies. They said, impossible, impossible. And this time Brahmanand Prabhu said, he was at this time very stern, and he said, this is going to have serious repercussions for a future business with you. There were huge orders. And he left. There's no book. But still he had to start because Rath Yatra was there, so he started. He was very sad that he's not taking any book with him. So he came to airport and then he's climbing the stairs of the flight. And at that time, there's a huge car that comes there. 5 executives, they get down from the car with the box. And you can imagine the entire scene. ऐसा होता है क्या कभी? All the passengers looking down. What is this big car doing here? And who are these people? And Brahmananda Prabhu, he came down. And then they handed over the carton to Brahmanand Prabhu. And they said, they firstly bowed down to Brahmanand Prabhu, the way they do in Japan, from the waist. Yes. And they said, this is yours. They were very happy, they were smiling. Hope now there will be no repercussions in future. And Brahmanand Prabhu was very happy. Now the air hostess in the flight, she is calling, come fast, we have to leave. The Brahmanand Prabhu came inside. Now he was not able to hold himself. He wanted to see the book. He went to his seat and then he opened the carton, and at that time he removed the silver Krishna book. This is how it was. And he was looking at the book, his eyes were glittering, and the person who was sitting beside was a business executive. He was also traveling somewhere. He asked, what's that? And Brahmanand Prabhu said, this is my spiritual master's very, very important book, which we have got, and these are the first few copies. And the business executive asked, how much does it cost? And they're not decided on cost yet. Yeah, first copies to hai. So he told some random number, $10. And the business executive, he said, okay, give it to me. This is how the first book, Krishna book, was distributed. So Brahmananda was very happy. 20 books were there in the carton. So one book went. So 19 are there. So he came to Srila Prabhupada. And when he came to Srila Prabhupada, he presented it to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada saw this book and he was extremely happy. Extremely happy. And then Brahmananda Prabhu said that there were 20 books in the carton. Now there are 19. And Prabhupada said, where is that one book? And Brahmananda Prabhu said, I distributed it in the flight. One business executive, he purchased it. And Prabhupada was extremely happy. Oh, that is a very auspicious sign. The first book is already distributed. Now take these 19 books and distribute it in Rath Yatra. So in this way, Krishna book distribution, it started in the Rath Yatra. But still, one thing was there, that these devotees, they were distributing which books before? Not book, magazine. BTG magazine, and that was 4 cents. And now this Krishna book was $8. So the first book was sold for $10, but the cost was $8, which they finalized later. Now devotees were thinking, "Kaun lega book?" And Prabhupada is getting huge orders from Dai Nippon. He's ordered and he's got huge number of books, and those are distributed to different temples. And you know what temple devotees did? They kept all those huge cartons in their basement. Because they were thinking, abhi isko distribute kaise karenge? On the street, BTG distribution is only so difficult. How will we do this? So in San Francisco, Keshav Das, he was the temple president. He was leading the temple at that time. And it was described that there was a point when even the BTG magazines were not available. Temples were running on the sale of BTG magazines, but somehow there was a shortage of BTG magazines. They were struggling. So Keshav Prabhu, he thought, abhi kuch to karna hoga jeene ke liye. So he gave one begging bowl to all the devotees. And they said, see, Buddhists do this, we can also follow them. So now this would not work for long. So at that time, there were 2 devotees. Premarnava Prabhu and Buddhimanta Prabhu. They were on Harinam. They thought that let's have some Krishna book with us. They took few copies of Krishna book. And they were at a gas station to refuel their vehicle. And best part is they don't have enough money to pay now. So they thought that let's see this Krishna book can be given instead of the money. And they both tried convincing. See, two great devotees are convincing a person on the gas station. They're opening and showing different things in the book. They're explaining about the book. And they said that instead of money, why don't you take this Krishna book? It's very nice. And guess what? That person took it. And that was a breakthrough in the entire distribution of Krishna book. And they came back and they spoke about this to everyone in the temple. Everyone was very happy. And then they requested Keshav Prabhu that please give us the books which are there in the basement. We would like to distribute. And it's described that these devotees, especially Buddhimanta Prabhu, he took the books out and Keshav Prabhu was thinking, kaise book distribute hoga? It's not possible. But Buddhimanta Prabhu went out and he sold that particular day 3 books. After that 5 books. And now in the temple it was a huge sensation. And then all the devotees started going out with Krishna book. And that's how Krishna book distribution began on a large scale. And now these devotees from this temple, they were going to other temples. They were struggling with BTG only. Krishna books were there in the basement. They would go and educate them. Koi baat nahi, ho sakta hai. Krishna book distribution bhi ho sakta hai. There's one devotee called Haridas Thakur Prabhu who went from this temple to another temple. And there, he showed to distribute Krishna book, how to distribute. And all the devotees, their jaws were dropping down to see, this is possible. And that's how in the entire world after that, this huge missionary activity started. A revolution began. Now Back to God magazines were less distributed. And the big books distribution began. And in this way, Krishna book, which consists of all the Leelas of the Lord, starting from Vrindavan Leela till the Dwarka Leela, which is very, very nectarian book, was getting distributed in those streets where people were not knowing who is Krishna. And everyone who got that book, they were very, very fortunate. Because for sure, by reading that book, they might have surely become devotees. And more importantly, the devotees who were distributing book, they became more and more serious. And a lot of mercy started flowing because the reports would go to Srila Prabhupada that so and so number of books are distributed. I think the first report said some 20 books are distributed. And Prabhupada was extremely happy. And then Prabhupada wrote, all of you try your best to push on this movement by distributing these books. And at that time, everywhere news spread, this is what Prabhupada wants. And since all of them, they were surrendered to Prabhupada completely, they were so chaste to Prabhupada, they all started doing this. And everyone started sending out the reports to Prabhupada. But still the distribution was not very systematic. Then few devotees, they planned a systematic book distribution. And then especially during the Christmas time, they found that's huge distribution that is taking place. And that's how the book marathon also began in the month of December. So this is the history, how Bhagavad-gita as it is came into picture, and how miraculously even Krishna book was manifested. And guess what? These are 2 books which we are holding in our hands when we're going out on the street. And whenever you're speaking to people about this, you should be very confident. If there these books can be distributed, this is India. Yahan to hona hi chahiye. There's no doubt about this. Yes. So whenever you're holding these books now, requesting you all to remember these 2 miraculous events which took place. One is in the Macmillan skyscraper building. Second, in the house of David, George and Shyam Sundar Prabhu. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. December book marathon ki Jai.